Okay, I have a serious problem because I cannot contain just how in love I am with Ryu's character now. This chapter has easily skyrocketed Ryu from being a mysterious, suave Chad that I think is pretty cool into being one of my top 10 favorite characters. Okay, look, I get it. This is going to come off as extremely exaggerating for most people, but I just love stories of incredibly strong characters willing to throw away their power and their dreams in order to save the lives of others. And that is exactly what Ryu did in this chapter, throwing his position as one of the two strongest warriors in the entirety of the Land of Sun out the window along with his dream of becoming the Shogun, all to save the lives of the people of Goshu and Koshu from being wiped out by a mysterious epidemic. An epidemic, I remind you, that could only be cured by an herb that everyone thought was just a folklore. And it really makes you wonder, was this epidemic actually a naturally occurring thing, or was there something kinda devilish behind it? Anyway, in order to find this extremely rare herb, someone had to take on the legendary power only found in the Land of Sun, the Tengetsu, a mysterious clairvoyant eye that allows its user to see everything. And the only two people who could take in this power are Ryu and Yosuga. Oh, did I forget to mention? The flashback in this chapter is meant to be following Yosuga's point of view, where we find out that him and Ryu were rivals growing up and considered the two strongest people in the entire country, and the top two prospects for becoming the next shogun. The two were alike in a lot of ways, but the big difference between them was that when presented with taking the Tengetsu, Yosuke wanted to turn it down. You see, in order to take in this power, the user had to give up all their Yoryoku, which was something that Yosuke was not willing to do. He was willing to let everyone die on both islands if it meant keeping his power. While Ryu, as we know, didn't even hesitate. He gave up his power willingly without even a second thought because he knew it was the only way to possibly save those who were suffering. Throughout this entire flashback, Ryu and Yosuke reminded me heavily of Asta and Yuno, two young men who, by the time they were 17, were basically the strongest people in their entire country, and the two everyone believed were the most suited to become the next protectors of their country. And I couldn't help but think that if Asta and Yuno were put in the exact same position, Yuno would have hesitated just like Yosuke. I mean, he probably wouldn't have said, I'll just let everyone else die to keep my power like Yosuke did, but he would have had to think about it for a second. While I think it's pretty clear that Asta would have reacted just like Ryu, willing to give up everything he has for even a 1% chance that he could save everyone else without a second thought. Asta and Ryu, the two of them are just naturally heroes, and it's because of that people just naturally have a tendency to flock to them. As we see in this chapter, that because of Ryu continuing to use the Tengetsu to help others, that the residents of the Land of Sun begin to follow him as if he was already the next shogun. And despite initially being angry with Ryu for throwing away his Yoryoku, Yosuke began to respect him even more, so much so that when it came time to choose the next shogun of the Land of Sun, despite initially being offered a job, Yosuke decided that Ryu was the better option, choosing instead to become one member of his Ryuzen 7. I can't help but feel that this flashback has given us a small glimpse into what's going to happen at the end of the series when it comes time to choose the next Wizard King, where Yuno would be offered the position initially but decide to relinquish it to Asta instead. Although, if I'm being honest, I always did kind of hope that when it came time to choose between the two of them who would end up becoming the next Wizard King, that we would get a friendly competition at the end of the series between the two of them, where they would battle it out and see who would actually end up taking up the position. Anyway, jumping back to the present day, we see Yosuke easily defeat Heath, which I mean, it's Heath, there's no real surprise there. Although, we will have to wait and see if he's truly down for the count, or if he'll eventually just heal up and get back up and escape. And then, because Asta is having a hard time dealing with the five-headed dragon due to his healing ability that is apparently not tied to the Beast Paladin or any kind of magic, Ryu decides to gather 6 of the Ryuzens, and they're all ready to back up Asta and take it down the legendary beast, which they'll most likely be able to do by using Ryu's Tengetsu to discover the dragon's true weakness. Also, as a side note, we do see that part of Jozo's mask is cracked, revealing part of his face. I mention that because I did see that a surprisingly large portion of the fandom are extremely interested in finding out exactly what's behind that man's mask. I don't know, I guess that's just a natural reaction that fans have when a character is introduced whose face is almost completely covered. Also, as another side note, the only reason that doesn't answer Ryu's call to help out Asa in this chapter is actually Ichika, which means that she's most likely still dealing with the revelation of what really happened to her clan in the past. But for now, we'll have to put that plot on the back burner because in the very next chapter, we're going to focus on the protectors of the Land of Sun taking down the biggest threat it's ever faced.